Well, g'day curd nerds. Today we're making a cheese that is probably the most consumed on the planet, Pizza Mozzarella. This cheese is a low moisture form of the world famous Italian pasta filata cheese. This version is usually made with cow's milk and it grates well and of course melts to perfection. So thanks to Hanna Instruments Australia for sponsoring this video, and let me show you how to make Pizza Mozzarella with help from the Halo 2 pH meter for cheese. Don't forget to start by sanitising all of your equipment. I've put all the stainless steel stuff in a pot and boiled it for 15 minutes. The ingredients for Pizza Mozzarella is as follows: 8 litres or 2 gallons of cow's milk, pasteurised, unhomogenised. Annatto, 4 to 8 drops, diluted in 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water. Now this is optional if you want to make your cheese a little bit yellow. 1/8 teaspoon of MOT 92 thermophilic culture, or Thermo B will suffice. 1/2 teaspoon or 2.5 millilitres of single strength rennet, diluted in 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water. Cheese salt, which is non-iodised, and we're going to use 2% by weight of the curd. So set up your water bath and fill your pot up with the 8 litres of milk, or 2 gallons. So I'm using 5 litre bladders there. So the second bladder I'm just going to pour a little bit into the pot and then measure out 2 litres into the jug. Use that later on. So I've got 3 more litres in there, so that makes 8. So we're going to heat our milk to 37 degrees Celsius or 99 degrees Fahrenheit using the water bath. Just filling the sink up with hot water there to get to the right temperature. Now it's time to start using or preparing our Halo 2 wireless pH tester for cheese. Now, as recommended by the instructions, I'm using steam distilled water and a squeeze bottle to rinse off the probe in between using solutions. So here it is in its little box. It comes with instructions and a certificate of calibration, plus you also get a couple of sachets of all the solutions. So just put the box aside. Don't lose the book. And there we go, there's the meter. It comes with a storage solution, and you just unscrew that and then pull the probe out. Don't throw away the little storage solution vessel there. That keeps the tip nice and moist when it's storing. Now I'm just rinsing off the storage solution with the distilled water squirty bottle. Just set that aside. Now there are the 2 buffer solutions or calibration solutions. We've got a pH of 4.01, which is the pink one. I'm just putting it into some sterile jars there. And there's the pH 7.01, which is the green one. I'm glad they're coloured so you don't get them mixed up, so that's a good bonus. Right, so they're all ready to use for testing. Now, calibration of this meter is so easy. You turn it on. Wait until it says what the battery is and comes up with a reading, and then you hold it down. It pretends to power off, but then it goes into calibration mode. And then it tells you to put it into the 7.01. Then it detects it. There you go, it's figured out that it's in that one. And it tells you to wait until it's calibrated. So when the hourglass stops flashing, it'll go to the next one. There we go. So it's told me to use the 4.01, but in between, always rinse off the probe with the distilled water, then pop it into the 4.01. Then it figures out, yes, it's going to use that one next. There we go, so it's now recording or calibrating until the little hourglass is still flashing, and it tells us to wait. Now this may take some time. Now I wasn't sure it was working, and then all of a sudden, bingo boingo, it saved the calibration. So it's now ready to use. So remove it from the solutions, give it a clean off with the distilled water, and you can turn it off at this stage. And it's now calibrated for the entire session for the day. So if you were to use it again the next day, then you should recalibrate the meter. Okay, back to the cheese. So now we're going to add the annatto. Now, as I said, this is optional. If you want your pizza mozzarella to be white or just off white, then don't need to add the annatto. But I wanted mine a little bit yellow, just like the pizza mozzarella you get in bags pre-grated. So I'm just stirring that through, just checking the temperature, and it's not quite at the target temperature just yet. Now I'll check the temperature again, and we're pretty close to 37, which is the target temperature at the moment. There we go. Absolutely perfect. So just give it a quick stir. And now we're going to add in the thermophilic starter culture. So a level 1/8 of a teaspoon, just sprinkle that over the top of the milk. And we're going to allow that to rehydrate for 5 minutes. So 5 minutes later, we're just going to stir the culture in. There we go, that's all it takes. Pop the lid back on, and we're going to allow the milk to ripen for 1 hour. Now just give that another stir, just to incorporate the cream back in, which is floated at the top. We're going to add the rennet solution now. Just pour that in whilst we're stirring. And stir for no more than 1 minute. And cover that up, and we're going to allow the curds to set for 1 hour. So 1 hour later, we're going to check for a clean break. Just pop your knife in and turn it 45-degree angle, and it should split cleanly. And in this case it has. I'm going to use my curd harp and cut the curds into 5mm or 1/5 of an inch cubes, cutting the horizontals with the curd carp and the verticals with the curd knife, trying to get them as small as possible. And it's pretty hard to do that with a curd cutter and a curd knife, so use a whisk and just stab it up and down, and you'll get the size that you're after. So cover them and allow the curds to heal for 5 minutes. So you can take this opportunity to test the pH of the curds before we proceed any further, just to make sure that they have acidified. Now the normal pH of milk is about 6.6, so I'm just going to check to make sure it's at about 6.4, which is about what you would expect for this amount of elapsed time. So once you're finished with the pH meter, just turn it off, and don't forget to rinse it. I'm just rinsing again with the distilled water from the squeeze bottle, and then just set that aside. Now back to the cheese. We're going to raise the temperature of the curds to 38 degrees Celsius or 100 Fahrenheit over the period of 45 minutes, and we're going to stir it continuously. So I'm just adjusting the temperature on my sous vide or precision cooker there up to the right temperature, and just stir it gently for 45 minutes. Now, the curds weren't cut to the right size as far as I was concerned, so I decided to go back to the whisk and just stir them with that. So after the 45 minutes, you can see that the curds are about the right size, which is fantastic, and it's ready to proceed on to the next step. So just remove your spoon, and we're going to allow the curds to settle and hold at the target temperature for 30 minutes. This will help increase the acidification of the curds. So just remove the heat. I'm just taking the water out of the water bath and just removing the precision cooker. There we go. Just set that aside because I am going to use it later. So I'm just taking the pot out of the sink, removing the trivet, and I've got another pot that I've sanitized with some boiling water. There we go. And I'll put the colander lined with cheesecloth over the top of that pot. So we're going to drain the curds and we're going to retain the whey. We're going to use the whey to keep the curds warm for a little bit more acidification. So I got a little bit too much there, so just tip some out. That's okay. And you can use the whey for a lovely ricotta afterwards. Or you can watch the 15 ways with whey video in the info card now. So I'm just pressing the curds down, popping a lid on top, and we're going to keep those warm. So to do that, I'm going to refill the water bath and use the whey as a heat sink to keep the curds warm whilst they're draining. So I'm going to put the precision cooker back in and keep the whey at 38 degrees Celsius or 100 Fahrenheit for about 2 hours. And then at 30 minutes, I'm going to start testing every 15 minutes. Now, why do we do that? Because the curds will only stretch when they're at a target temperature of between 5.3 and 5. So I'm testing now. So I tested 15 minutes ago. You can see a hole in the curds there. And we've reached a pH of 5.09. Now, you'll know it's the right reading when the little hourglass stops flashing. So it's a stable reading there at 5.09. So we're in the right range to stretch the curds. So we can move on to the next step, and that's place the curds in a large bowl and break into thumb-sized pieces. I'm just getting the salt ready. But before we do that, we need to know how much the curds weigh. So we're going to weigh the curds on my scale. So the curds weighed 1,145 grams, or 1.145 kilograms, which equals 2 pounds 8 ounces. So we're going to need 2% salt, which is 22.9 grams or 0.8 ounces of salt. So we're going to weigh that. I've just zeroed the scale there. And I'll sprinkle over the top until we hit the right measurement. So salt not only adds flavour, but it actually stops the acidification of the curds. So I'm just going to transfer it back to the big bowl because it's easier to mill. Make sure I get everything out there. And then mix the salt through the curds. Now all this is with clean hands, of course. I regularly clean my hands during the cheese making process. I'm going to allow the salt to absorb into the curds for 5 minutes. So we're now going to add hot water, which is 95 degrees Celsius or 203 Fahrenheit. It's just boiled, so I'm just pouring that over the curds that we milled earlier. So we're going to begin to stretch the curds until they have a shiny and a smooth surface. But before I do that, I'm going to break the curd mass and divide it into 2 equal sized pieces. So I'm going to begin to stretch each piece, and as you can see, because it's at the right pH, it stretches really well. Now only stretch each piece 3 times. You don't want to break up the proteins in the curds too much because it won't be stringy anymore. There we go, fold it back over. So now once we've stretched it, we're going to place the curds into a large rectangle basket and we're going to rest it under the hot water to make it form into a rectangle. Now I just turned that over just to make sure that there were no gaps or air gaps and pressed it down. You can see there I'm using heavy duty rubber gloves. Very essential because you don't want to burn your hands. This water is really hot. So we're going to sprinkle 1 teaspoon of salt over the surface of the cheese, just in case some of that salt absorbed into the hot water. So I'm just pressing it down just to make sure there's no air bubbles in it. Then after a little while, just turn the slab over, back in the rectangle again. And we're going to sprinkle another teaspoon over the top of the surface of the cheese. There we go. You can tip all the way out. Now we're going to place the cheese in the basket. I just put it into that little bowl that I used first. Put it in the kitchen fridge for 24 hours. Now let's not forget our pH meter. Now it's time to clean it after the cheese making session. So I'm using a storage solution and an electrode cleaning solution for cheese making. So first of all, we're going to clean it and sanitize the probe. So I just luckily had a test tube, a plastic test tube there, and it probably did the job. So I'm going to put the electrode cleaning solution about halfway up the test tube, or maybe 3/4, and then pop the probe in. And now we're going to leave that for 30 minutes to clean any of the cheese solids off of the probe. So 20 minutes later, now we're going to store the probe. So I'm just going to squirt off the cleaning solution with distilled water. There we go. And now make sure the little plastic storage thing gets filled up with storage solution. So I've got a little squirty bottle that came in the box, but I've got a full bottle there, as you can see, of the storage solution. So when the squirty bottle runs out, I'll just fill it up. So you just put the meter back into the storage container and then tighten the rubber ring. It's got a rubber grommet so the storage solution doesn't fall out. And then pop it back into the box. Make sure everything goes back in there. Put your instructions back in and then pop it back into your cheese equipment storage cupboard.
24 hours later.
So I removed the cheese from the basket at about 12 hours when it was in the fridge, because it was starting to dry out, so then I wrapped it in plastic wrap. So 12 hours in plastic wrap, and I thought, yep, let's try it and see what it looks like. It's formed a solid slab. It hasn't sunk like quick mozzarella would, and you can see there it's a little bit wonky, but that's no big deal. It doesn't affect the taste of the cheese. It's not going to the Royal Melbourne show, that's for sure. But the pattern looks really cool from the basket as well. So now we can use it. And I'm just taking some of the wrap off there, and you just cut the cheese. You can see there's no air bubbles, so I did a pretty good job there. There's a couple of little ones there where I didn't press it down properly, but it's certainly stringy, as you can see from that piece there. Now this will keep in the kitchen fridge in wrap for about 7 days, and it can be frozen, so you can frozen chunks of it, defrost them and grate them later. So it can be grated or sliced as required. So let's use the pizza mozzarella to make pizza. So, how's it taste? Well, let's give it a go, shall we? Not only is the pizza amazing, but so is the cheese. The cheese melts perfectly, beautiful looking pizzas. The cheese, pizza mozzarella, is well worth making. Anyway, back to Gav. So that was a fairly easy process, as you can see, and I'm so glad I hit the right pH target, and I wouldn't have done that without the pH meter for cheese. So if you're in Australia and you want to purchase the Halo 2 pH meter for cheese and the various solutions that you saw during the video, then click the link in the description and use the coupon code CHEESEMAN at the checkout to get 10% off these products from Hanna Instruments Australia. Now don't forget that you can purchase your cheese making equipment and supplies from littlegreenworkshops.com.au. We ship all over the world. You can also find a link to the recipe in the description down below. Now I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, hit the like button or leave a comment with your thoughts about pizza mozzarella and the process. Well, thanks for watching, curd nerds, and I'll see you next time.